Hi friends, this is Anirban. Welcome to my Geeky Anirban channel. Before watching this video, don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. There are many people who compare between the Android phones and the iPhones. In few departments, the Android phones are much ahead than the iPhones, and in few departments, the iPhones are much ahead than the Android phones. What are those? Let's get started. First one is that the hardware optimization. The Apple designed their own hardware and optimizing their own software. Therefore, they have no lagging issues in their smartphones. And the Google makes their own Android devices, whereas there are huge lagging issues in the Android devices. They have not so much potential comparing to the iPhones, especially about the software or about the hardware. Next thing is the customization. Here the story totally changes. The Android devices have a huge customization process. You can change the wallpaper, you can change the lock screen wallpaper, you can change the theme, you can change the widget, many other things you can customize. But in the Android phones, it doesn't have so much customization process. So here the Apple declines. Next thing is that the software updates. Here the Apple used to give the regular software updates, whether it's an older phone, whether it's an iPhone 5 that has been launched in 2012, whether it's a today's phone that is iPhone 7 Plus launched in the 2016. They have a huge software updates in their updating point. But in the Android devices, they doesn't give so much regular updates in the older phones or in the today's phones. Next thing is that the battery. In the battery segment, the Android devices have a huge potentials in the battery segment, whereas the iPhone doesn't have that up to the mark, because you have a huge devices like 4000 mAh battery, like 4100 mAh battery, like 5000 mAh battery. You have many options in that, but iPhone doesn't have that. Next thing is that the file sharing. In the Android devices, you can share everything with your computer, whether it's your laptop, whether it is your tablet, you can share everything through all this. But in the iPhones, you can share only with the Apple devices. So here the Apple doesn't have making any sense. Next thing is that the security patch level. Here the Apple devices give the best security patch level in the iPhones, whereas the Android doesn't give so much up to the mark security patch level than comparing to the iPhones. So next thing is that the gaming. Here the Apple devices like the iPhones are perhaps the most dominant players in the gaming purpose, whereas the Android devices, there are many lags while playing the games. So many app developers have stopped giving the apps in the gaming segment. Next thing is that the after sales service. Here the Apple iPhones are the best after sales service in all the mobile segment, whereas in the Android devices, whether it is a Samsung, whether it's a HTC, whether it's a Xiaomi, whether it's a Lenovo, they doesn't have so much after sales service here. Next thing is that the intelligence assistant. Here in the Android devices, they have a Google Assistant, and in the iPhones they have a Siri. The Google Assistant are much more superior than the Siri. Next thing is that the app selection. You have many apps. I'm telling you the numbers. 2 crore 70 lakhs apps you are having in the Android phones, but in the iPhones they are also having many apps. Comparing to iPhones, you doesn't have so much apps in the App Store. They have 2 crore 25 lakhs, approx like that, I think so. And next thing is that the NFC. You can transfer money through NFC in the Android devices, where the Apple does not support this. Nowadays, I think they are having NFC support, but in the previous phones they doesn't have this process. Next thing is that the customer care. Here the Apple doesn't forget their own customers, whereas in other devices, in other brands, they doesn't get too much related with the customers, because you have any cracks or any damage in the iPhones, they will totally replace that, but in the Android devices they will not. So this is a huge difference between the Android phones and the iPhones. Next thing is that the accessories. Here you have very much options in the accessories department than the iPhones, but on the Android devices, if the devices like like very cheap quality phones on the Android devices. You doesn't have so much accessories on that particular devices, but in the iPhone devices you have a huge platforms on that. Next thing is that the device options. You have a huge platform on the device options, means you have many options on the device, like you have a Redmi Note 4 on the budget category, you have a mid-range phones on the Moto G5 Base Plus, you have a high-range phones that are Samsung S8 Plus, and now it is having the Samsung Note 8. So you have a many huge options for choosing your devices, but in the iPhones you have only one or two devices, so there are not so much huge platforms in the iPhones. Next thing is that the optimizing power. Here the optimizing power in the iPhones are much better than the Android phones, because the optimizing power on the iPhones are very much disabled on their own functions, but on the Android devices they have a huge optimizing power. So I hope it will help you a lot. Thank you for watching me. Thank you. Please don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye.